episode 2 of season 3. My name is Mario Vassaux, CTO, COO of Life365. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Before I introduce our guests, I'd like to thank everybody out there in the healthcare community, first responder community, for all of their efforts during COVID. And it looks like we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel here. And so wanted to, on behalf of Life365, thank you for all of your efforts. Now I'd like to take a minute to introduce our panelists. And by the way, our topic today is the role of emerging technologies in healthcare for home. Today, I bring you Daniel Rodriguez, who's the National Sales Manager for Strategic Accounts at MIR, Medical International Research, a developer and a distributor of spirometers and other related respiratory equipment. And then Sid Kandan, co-founder and CEO of Stel Life. Sid created a product. It's a cellular hub that allows you to connect multiple Bluetooth-enabled devices for the purposes of sending data through to the cloud and to different platforms. And welcome to our panelists, our distinguished panelists. And so I would like to give each one of you an opportunity to talk about your company. And so why don't we start with Danny. Good afternoon, Danny.
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to be with you today. So as he said, my name is Danny Rodriguez. I'm the National Sales Manager for MIR, or Medical International Research. It's a 30-year-old manufacturer, Italian-based, so we're a European company that makes diagnostic pulmonary devices for specifically in-clinic purposes. We offer a diverse selection of spirometry devices, including desktop, PC-based, and also portable handheld devices for in-clinic use. Within our portfolio, we also happen to have 2 devices that we identified as we call it today, our part of our smart connected line of products. And the intent of these products is to be able to provide a patient with a very user-friendly and affordable pocket device that can capture a simple spirometry test and be able to, by way of Bluetooth technology, be able to share it with their healthcare provider. And I think I've covered pretty much what we do.
Oh, great. Thank you, Danny. Let's go over to Sid. Sid, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Mario. Yeah, thanks, Mario. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here and the audience. So at Stel, we aim to simplify the process for connectivity as care evolves to the home. So as health systems and care teams embrace this new normal and they attempt to evolve the standard of care, the barriers are commonly patients and the concern of the digital divide and patients lacking Wi-Fi and infrastructure to access care and connect to their care teams, as well as the process for the care teams that have to stand up new programs and new flows in this new complicated world, and then the security risk of the EHR integration and those workflows that emerge. So in order to simplify all of that and bring forward this new normal, we created this. It's the Stel Vitals Hub. There's no buttons or switches. And it's really the operating system that goes into this hub. So patients just simply plug it in at home and take their vitals measurements from the devices that Danny mentioned, or a slew of the devices that are appearing on the market, and we handle the rest. The hub automatically connects to the device, takes the measurements, sends it over cellular over one of multiple carriers that are compatible with this hub, and we send it right to your preferred workflow, whether that's the EHR or Life365, wherever you need it, the data will be there as expected. So this way we offer a simple, secure, and scalable system and standard to evolve care to the home and this new normal.
Excellent. Thank you. In Life365, we're really all about getting that data to the care provider, the clinician, in the simplest way possible, without the barriers that occur many times with throwing technology at patients. And we have different populations, and they not always take well to some of the technology that we've presented to them. So the Stel device is fantastic in being able to limit those barriers. And then for the mirror devices, I think the spirometry is a very interesting area, but it is an example here of an actual device that's out there that is actually serving a purpose, a specific purpose. And one of the things we like to think of ourselves here at Life365 is really that, we're agnostic to devices. We want to be able to provide our care providers with as many devices, as many tools that will help them provide better outcomes for their patients. And then what we've got with the Stel device is we have a system that is very simple, but it's the system that allows us now to take those measurements and shoot them up into the cloud, be it through our portals, any care EHR, and then also inclusive. We've just recently announced our relationship with Microsoft. So we're on the Microsoft Health platform. We're able to now give the larger enterprise customers that access to data. And at the end of the day, that data, the purpose of that data is to make better outcomes for patients. So today's marketplace with COVID, one of the things that came out of COVID was really this whole focus and emphasis on care at home. And so a lot of companies, I will tell you from personal experience, I get 2-3 submissions a week of new devices that are out there. It's crazy. A lot of good devices and some not so good, but I think one of the things that we are always looking for is obviously quality. If it's FDA approved, all the better. But one of the things we're looking for as Life365 is to create something that standardizes a platform, right? You can't have multiple apps addressing different types of measurements. And I think here's where Stel helps us do that. And then on the other side, as the endpoint for gathering that data, we have the mirror devices that actually can do that in a very standardized way. So having said that, with all of this that's going on and the focus on healthcare at home, I'd like to ask some questions and want to remind the audience that feel free to add your questions in the chat. We will try to get to them during the call. If we don't, we'll follow up with you soon after. But I appreciate it if you could add your questions to chat. So a question for Danny is, Danny, spirometry is a science. It's not as simple as just taking a simple thermometer reading. There's something there. Could you tell us about some of the barriers you've encountered, in the long history of MIR, and what you've done to beat those barriers for user engagement on your devices?
Well, the device, the technology behind spirometry is allowing a simple patient flow. A patient blowing into the device, be able to break it down into a series of metrics that are standard within the healthcare community. So pulmonologists, family practitioners, pediatricians, they're all similar with certain metric points that they look at, and it's measured against a patient's predicted. So we enter a patient's demographic information, their height, their age, their weight, their sex, and ethnicity. And we measure against that database. And what practitioners want to see is not only what the metric number, the raw number for that patient was, but also what's their percent against that predicted set. And they're looking for the norms to be within the 80 percentile, but anything below that, it's something to be addressed. So COVID presented a unique situation for us, but actually we've had this product for, God, going on nearly 20 years now. We've had a product that was conceived on the basis of providing a certain care for the lung transplant community. So where these patients were needing to be monitored on a regular and daily basis. But as you know, in the US geography, there's not that many lung transplant facilities. So many patients were hundreds of miles away from their nearest facility. And it became a cumbersome situation to be able to capture regular or daily pulmonary tests on this patient being so far away from the clinic. That's where the idea came to be, providing a device that back then it was using cellular data, being able to allow the patient to do the simple test and be able to transmit that data. That technology became antiquated, became expensive. It was hard for us to keep up with it. So we transitioned over to something more affordable, more economical. It wound up to be Bluetooth. So in today's product, the patient just drops a simple app on their smartphone or tablet and allows them to do the simple test using their phone as a patient-facing or the interface, so they could see their measurements, they can see the predicted, they could see all that, although they may not understand what they're looking at, but be able to collect that data. And then with some of our partners that interface our technology into their platforms, be able to capture that data and transmit it over to the provider's display or portal in real time. So essentially, I can do a spirometry test sitting here in my office, and hundreds of miles away, my provider can get my data in real time.
Right. Thank you. And again, going over to Sid, on your device, currently you have a X number of devices that you connect to. What other, currently, how many devices do you connect to, and what are your plans to connect to other Bluetooth devices in the coming months?
Yeah. So we connect with hundreds of devices. As you pointed out, Mario, there's a new device of the week, right? And new device entering market all the time. Innovation is rampant right here because the cost of innovating for Bluetooth chips has gone down into a price point where people can iterate on it. I think what Danny perfectly stated was the so what of the innovation and the next step of it. So it's one thing to have a continuous signal from these devices and sensors. It's the interpretation and addition to the clinical workflow, which is the crux of it. So in terms of offering developers a path to innovate, we totally get the whole appeal. And I think there's some questions in the Q&A about the cell device that I can launch into in a bit. Totally get that appeal, but we're tackling it from the mark of, can we create a super mesh network and an adoptable standard for device manufacturers to create and evolve their old school Bluetooth and connectivity standards to a new age AirPod passive connectivity that is more secure and more usable in clinical workflows.
Exactly, good. And so it's for the audience, Sid is the inventor kind of a guy and is an engineering guy. So he's an innovator, and so I am sure we're going to see some significant innovation on the side of Stel with a lot of things. And we're really pleased to be working with him. So a couple of other things. The current, so you see that we're going to go away. Potentially, Bluetooth may be out there for a while, but we're going to go away from that. There's going to be other technologies that are coming into play. Just kind of to bring some other thoughts into the call here is where Sid, do you see your technology going?
Yeah, so I think just to answer some of the audience question here into it,
Yeah, go ahead.
We are witnessing a commoditization in some senses of cellular technology, right? Gone are the days that cell modems are $50 or $60. It's reaching a price point of like 20 or 30, but it's still pretty expensive to roll it out to a disposable unit, like people are pre-baking into cellular products. So
Right.
as new complicated sensors enter market, like mirror spirometer, which is sophisticated engineering, and they have to figure out how are we going to interpret this data flow and make it at a cost-efficient price point. As Danny pointed out, cellular technology kind of goes out the window because of the price points for the market to adopt it. So when you're talking about mirrors units or INR meters or smart pills or VADs even, to put cellular in that technology is super complicated. However, putting Bluetooth in it and talking with a single hub or a router to connect it to the back end, I think that's where we've seen the standard evolve. So in our ideal world is we're trying to promote a standard that clinicians can easily tap into and scale up, and device manufacturers can just adopt and not worry about the PHI concerns or the additional unnecessary concerns, and they can innovate on sensors and connecting patients in that patient experience.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, Danny, I was going to ask you. So we currently use some of your spirometers with great success. One of the things I was going to ask you is what's on your roadmap for healthcare in the home?
Well, what we're seeing mostly, the calls we're getting in is not only those interested in our spirometry and the technology, but companies such as Stel that have come to us looking to how they can integrate our technology on their platform. You know, we are a small company. We're growing day by day, but we just don't have enough feet on the street to get the message out. So we're dependent on a lot of these software platform companies that have an audience of providers that are interested in their technology and are looking to embed our product within that. So we see the growth. We're experiencing the growth in this technology, but it's not as widely accepted yet. COVID has created a lot of exposure on the product, but now the understanding how to implement this in a practice. You know, doctors for the most part are traditionalists. They like to work a certain way, and this is new, and they don't like change.
Right.
This is a big change for them.
Yeah.
So it's getting them to think in that new method, and introducing this type of technology for not just spirometry, but all sorts of different diagnostic modalities that are out there. So we see the potential is going to be huge, especially for our market. It's again getting the providers to accept that change, and then of course the challenges of the reimbursement, which is the U.S. model.
Yeah. So we will at one point have a new normal on reimbursements, because that is the hot topic, right? Is who pays for all this technology? Who pays for all this service? You know, how do we get reimbursed, or how do our clinicians get reimbursed for those systems? So we'll address those on another session. But hey, Danny, while we're with you, you know, give us an example of a use case that you have for the spirometer. Just you know, kind of your standard use case that you have currently. Let's say for the personal version.
Well, I guess the best example we have out there is when, if you recall, in March of 2020, physician offices nationwide were simply shut down. They couldn't see patients. Hospitals were limiting only COVID positive patients to come into the hospital. So this left a large community of chronic pulmonary patients out there with no outlet, no one to assist them or help them manage their care. So the most prominent opportunity that presented itself to us that we succeeded with was with the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. They recognized that a need to provide some type of continuous care for their patients. So they went out and sourced a large number of these devices and provided them free of charge to every cystic fibrosis practitioner in the country. So they provided these free of charge to these practitioners, which in turn provided them free to the patients. And it was just a matter of coaching them on how to use the product, how to send me the data. And that today has led to these very same practitioners saying, this is working great. I love this product. How can we get more?
Right.
And that's opened up that gave us a lot of exposure with that subset of patients. Now the word is starting to open up. We're starting to get calls and opportunities with other care groups, and of course the software developing companies such as Stel are also in conversation with us on how do we partner up our two technologies.
Right, definitely. And then Sid, it's really interesting. You one of the things that the reasons that we're really interested in using for our customer base, the Stel devices, really is the future of being able to automatically pair devices. You know, one of the hurdles for the providers of RPM services for clinicians is and barriers to entry is really this whole fiasco that we all go through when we're trying to pair devices, you know, prepare them before it gets sent out to patients, or when we send them out to patients and patients just, you know, scratch their heads going, I don't know what's going on here. So talk to us a little bit about what Stel's doing in that area.
Yeah. So that's the fun part. As an engineer, we get to innovate on these challenges. I'll just throw this out there. These guys here with the AirPods have changed the whole what it means to pair today. When you think of AirPods, you don't think of that hold to pair. Let me go into settings. Let me go through this protocol, right? You just let me pop them in and I'll just work. Right? That's what we think the standard of care could be and should be for medical devices. There shouldn't be that complex setup and process and flow. It should just work. To bring that about, however, it takes some backtracking of how we got here. And the reason we got here is because of the security key exchanges and the practice of ensuring that there's different classification levels when you're doing the Bluetooth pairing, which is a lot of unnecessary detail, because we have found a different way to go about those pairing processes, and we call passive pairing, where we can still offer that same level of security by pre-baking and working with manufacturers like Mir and the companies themselves, because it's a closed loop system to make sure that it doesn't get used or hacked by unauthorized actors in here. But however, it still allows that passive pairing experience for the patient experience.
Right, and that at Life365 is one of our requirements, right? It's all about security, and you know, it's I guess it's one of the key elements of having a successful product is being able to protect the patient's information going back. Give us an example, if you could, of one of your success stories on the Stel device.
Yeah, I know. So it's kind of insane. Since the beginning of the pandemic, we've now transmitted over 1.5 million vitals. Like, just let that sink in. 1.5 million vitals from thousands of vulnerable patients across the country. And we've had patients take this out to the volcanoes of Hawaii, to the Mojave Desert, to the Adirondacks, to really remote places where their phones don't even work. And we were able to help connect these patients that were suffering from the digital divide and were at risk of being left behind as the standard of care hits this new normal and evolution. So it means a lot to have the dozens of academic medical centers, as well as the independent diagnostic testing facilities, as well as FQHCs, amidst the pandemic where everything is going crazy, be able to stand up and evolve their standard of care to this remote patient monitoring portfolio and platform. And it means a lot to work with those partners in pushing care to the home. Oh, you're muted, Mario. Sorry.
just kidding. The garbage truck was just on my block here, so I had to mute myself there for a second. So so we have two sides of the equation here. We have the data gathering device, and we have what I call the actually on two sides. One is the initiator, which is the spirometer. And then we have the aggregator, right? That's taking that information and getting it to the platform. So for us, it's the Life365 platform or our Microsoft platform, health platform. For others, it might be an EHR and it might be Epic, Cerner, you name it. There are different things. Sid, if I could ask you, is what currently which EHRs do you support?
Yeah, so we designed our system to be truly EHR agnostic. We have a lot of Epic use cases. We have also the Cerner and some other smaller EHR test considerations. We're really strong believers in you get to pick the process and set up your workflows to operate at the top of your license. So whatever EHR, whatever platform, like 365 does a great one. We just are really in it to make that platform work and amplify it. So.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, our goal is to be device agnostic and then have a single platform. But yeah, we Kent is always saying there is no one solution, right, in life, right? That there's got to be a variety of solutions. One day, maybe we'll standardize, and all the powers that be at EHRs will, and spirometry readings will, there'll be some standard. But talking about standards, so Danny, tell me about the standards that you guys follow. The associations that give you, that validate the data that we're getting from your spirometer readings.
Well, to start off, for entry into the U.S., every product we make has to be FDA approved, which they are. We go by the standards set by ATS, the American Thoracic Society, and Ehrs, the European Respiratory Society. They create the guidelines for spirometry globally. So how it's measured, what the predicted sets are, how those predicted sets are interpreted, and we follow those to the T. This way, by knowing that, when we provide our technology to our software platform providers, we allow them to customize the visualization of the report, but we can't allow them to alter how we measure spirometry. With the spirometry experts, we give you the data based on our technology. So they're only able to perform the test using our device. We provide the algorithms and the measurements, and then they're able to capture those measurements and post them or display them on their reports. So we are, we're CE marked. We're a global manufacturer, so we're currently in over 100 nations around the world. But of course, the U.S. leads the globe in this new technology, or at least it seems to have more of an impact globally than the rest of the world.
Right. And so, both companies provide avoiding a barrier to entry is especially with something like the VA, right? Where it's all manufactured either in Europe or manufactured in the US, which is fantastic. We would really like to see more devices manufactured in the US. We've all gone through the whole logistics nightmare that we've all currently went through, and who knows what's going to happen next. But it's always good to know that we have access to European and US made products. Sid, your products are all I just want to double verify, they're all US based, right?
Yeah, so the component placement initially is done in the Philippines and Taiwan under TA authorized places, but the final assembly, manufacturing, flashing is done here in our office in Philadelphia.
Awesome. So yeah, so we, I think we're all, we're all the size company where a lot of work is done by ourselves, right? So we do a lot of kitting and things, and I'm sure you guys do a lot of component assembly there too, which is good because it makes it, we know our products pretty well, right? So good. So going back to the questions, um, you know, the whole conversation really is about healthcare in the home, being able to get these readings, and in your conversations, Danny, with your customers, how do you feel you've been able to assist the clinicians, and then B, assist the patients themselves?
Well, as to the clinicians, it was able to prove to them that this simple little pocket device, a little plastic device, can obtain the same data using the same algorithms as their clinic desktop devices, the same devices they have in the hospitals or in the clinics. So when we can produce to them a report that looks identical to what their current clinic devices are producing, and show them the simplicity behind the technology, they're floored. They're amazed by it.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, we have a report, a study that was performed. It was unsolicited study by a national healthcare group, where they did a controlled study on a number of patients using our device, a very popular desktop device. And if you're familiar with Spirometry, a body box device, which is a high-grade hospital product, all doing the same PFT test on the same patients. And they found that the results were so tightly knit. As a matter of fact, I have a quote here from their study. It says the results showed that the coefficient of variation of the mere Spirobank device was clinically acceptable and not significantly different to the other two devices. So it floors them that a device that costs less than $200 can produce the same results in the same manner as those other devices. And that's the big
Yeah. So
big
that's a game changer, and I think that with Stel, it's the same thing. It's you both have devices that are replacing devices that cost thousands of dollars. You're both now creating something that's near and dear to my heart. Is in medicine, in healthcare, the cost of healthcare is through the roof.
Yes.
But the reality is the companies that are going to survive are not the companies that commoditize this, but to create solutions that are value-based solutions that, for example, right now, we don't know if insurance is always going to cover things, if CMS is going to cover readmissions, but these products have to be affordable so that Joe Blow consumer can actually purchase them on their own. Again, I think both companies here are providing game changers, at least on the pricing side. And I think that is probably, when I asked the question about eliminating barriers, cost is one of the biggest barriers, right? Good. Sid, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. It is, I think our CEO, Sandy Gomberg, says it best. So she was the CEO of Temple University Health System, president of Ari and Jefferson. So she's seen it all. She really has instilled in us that the whole question of when something becomes reimbursable is a big event in spectacle in healthcare, right? But it's usually a chicken and egg question of, well, the provider will do it when the payers pay for it, and the payers will reimburse it when the providers want it. And so who gives here? And what we've seen when it works most effectively is when the providers say, hey, this needs to be the new normal. This needs to be the standard of care, because this is fundamentally going to change how we pursue care here. And we're seeing that today. With FQHCs adopting this, right? Places that don't have these direct reimbursements. Usually there's a shift of, can we get consumers to do this and let us know when Apple Watches have this healthcare functionality to it. But it's really encouraging. And it's partially why I left my job at Facebook to jump into this, because we reached a new place where care teams really cared about bringing these devices to market, and that we had the chance to contribute to tools, not toys, that would end up in the landfill someday.
Exactly. You know, and really the end result and the value proposition is really the data, right? But not just the data for data's sake. It's got to be actionable data. You know, it's data that you can now use to actually provide, again, and I'm repeating myself, but you have to be able to provide better outcomes, better quality of care, and results for the patients. You know, I've seen in the olden days, you know, $2,000-3,000 devices being sent to the homes, but yet very little use by the patients. And then worse is very little use by the clinicians, you know, or they're not getting their money's worth. So of course, and then exponentially at the end of the day, as private citizens, we all pay the price when we pay our insurance bill, right? So cool. Alrighty. So we covered value proposition. You know, again, one of the things that we wanted to cover also is, you know, it's care at home, but where do you guys see and do you believe that there will be potentially hospital at home? You know, where now we don't have to get in our cars while we're sick with the flu or COVID or something else, go to the hospital and look around the room going, what, you know, am I going to get sick or whatever? So where do you guys see the, you know, hospital at home fitting in with your products in line? So we'll start with Danny.
Well, currently the conversations have been more as how do we keep you out of the hospital? So once you're discharged and sent home, how can we manage your care and get those data points and make sure that you don't get readmitted? That's a big topic point now with the hospital care groups. So this is one of the devices that come into play where there's no need for the patient to get tested at the hospital clinic or the physician's office. They can provide a process where the patient can send their reports on a regular basis, and someone at the hospital side be able to manage. The technology allows thresholds, threshold alarms or signals. So once the caregiver sees that they're trending the wrong way, the action can be taken at that point.
Exactly.
And not have to wait to that patient. That is just huge.
So you have preventative for preventative reasons. You have the readings, and then you also have the whole thing about saving the cost of readmissions, right?
Right.
You know, the doctors send the patient home from the hospital or the clinic, and the last thing they need to do is have their patient come back, you know, with aggravated symptoms or you know, a worse situation. So definitely. Sid, how do you see that?
Yeah, you know, we're actually really privileged to work with a number of health systems exploring this hospital at home construct and standard. It comes back to the same barriers I mentioned in the beginning. It's the question of the quality piece and the workflow piece and the efficacy piece. We've built enough goodwill and practice flows and cycles with care teams on the escalation flows and the alerting flows and that mechanism. The next piece that we're working on now is working with manufacturers to validate the data quality piece of it. There's a lot of work that's going on at like the Mayo Clinic's platform group with Dr. Hamalik. We just joined their consortium with Lucem Health to start to validate the data quality coming from these devices to ensure that they stay at a high quality as they continue to be used and become the keystone for many of these hospital at home programs.
Yeah, you know, that's really interesting that we, as Life365, we go through these IT assessments that are convoluted, complex, but in reality, what we should be doing is going through these gold standard quality assessments, right?
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to me that that's something that either they don't have enough time to do, but it's kind of overlooked. You know, they're more worried about, you know, is this bit arriving here exactly here, and is it protected versus what is the quality of the data that's being put through the system, and what are you able to do with that, right? So it's kind of an interesting thing that we'll have to talk about more in detail another time. Let's see. Other questions that I had on my list is, so you've had experiences both with hospitals and with clinicians, and I wanted to ask Danny. It says, Danny, do you see more business from larger entities or smaller entities, clinicians, you know, or do you have a range of types of customers?
The popularity still seems to be more with the larger hospital groups, the clinical research groups, because they have the funding available to invest in these type platforms.
Mm-hmm.
It's working its way down to the physician office level, but unfortunately, because what we touched on earlier about the reimbursements, there's still that you know, that slow down period. You know, they want to see proof of reimbursements. They don't want to be experimenting on whether they're going to get paid, because they're paying this out of pocket.
Right.
So I would say, to answer your question, yeah, it's still the larger IDNs, government, and also the CROs. Yeah,
and there you do, Spirometry does have its own specific CMS code, right? Reimbursement code, right?
Correct. It does. Okay. And we identified, aside from the standard codes that are used for in-office testing, we've identified a specific code that qualifies for at-home testing outside of what we know today as the RPM and RTM codes. So we have a fallback code that's available until this RTM gets cleared up.
Yeah. And it's an ever-changing thing, right? So
yes.
Things change quickly. And, you know, just out of curiosity, Sid, is there reimbursement codes for your devices, of course?
Yep. Okay. Absolutely. So the ones that you mentioned, the RPM, RTM codes exist. Everyone advertises those to a degree. I'll just throw out there, in addition to that, we did get alignment with the FCC on their Connected Care Pilot Program and agreement, and their telehealth program. So there's a lot of grants and a lot of opportunities to get reimbursements for devices that are aiming to bridge the digital divide. So we're fortunate to work with a number of partners to help that subsidize the cost of our units further.
Definitely, and we're definitely looking forward to working with you on that, on some projects like that too. So it's exciting. All righty, you know, I was going to say I didn't mention it, but Danny's been in the healthcare space longer than I've been married, so he brings a lot of experience to the table.
My age.
Yeah, no, you look very young, but you know, it's you know, your experience with Cardinal and you know, in the distribution of medical devices and items. What do you see as the biggest barrier to distribution of the MIR device right now?
Well, the traditional distribution model, the companies that are out there that are providing the everyday supplies, equipment into the physician offices and hospitals, they haven't been able to wrap their heads around this model. This is a whole different concept. It's a whole different sell. So as much as we try to have that conversation with them and offer opportunities, I don't want to downplay what they do, but they're box movers. You know, they're not specialists in any one thing, and we need somebody that can talk the talk. Yeah. So platform or software providers like Stel are in front of the right people talking about this program. That's what it is. We're just a tool within that bag, right? Yeah. So they're out there talking and selling their platform, and we just happen to be the device that's part of the overall solution.
Right.
We're putting our eggs on, we're putting our resources to work more so with these software companies because they're seeing the right customers for this type platform. But eventually, the distributors will take onto it and add it to their portfolio. But it's not there yet.
And my 2 cents worth is really the distributors probably have the products because they move boxes, but what they encounter is that the buyers are looking for a complete solution. They want the platform, they want the services, they want the interoperability. They want to be able to say, hey, so we're getting all these readings. Who in the world is going to be monitoring these, or these other services? So, Sid, I'll pose the same question to you.
Yeah, if I can comment on that, actually, it's actually interesting because you're 100% right. Everyone's getting pitched this whole, it works out of the box, like they're this vertically integrated solution. And I think we tackled the market in a unique way because we're aiming to just build the bridges there to all the connectivity solutions that people like and promote that standard of it. So the equivalent piece of it that I like to give an analogy for is a lot of people go for the behavior change. Like, what is that individual behavior in the individual patient, which is a really, really tough concept to do. Instead, we shoot for cultural change in reducing friction points in the organization's culture, like the complexity of integrations, the complexity of use, the cost of it. And from that, with enough of the cultural change, we'll change the individual behaviors that make up the culture.
Exactly. Even, we Life365 as a platform, and our idea is to bring all those things to bear on as a finished product and create all this interoperability. But we also find ourselves working with Microsoft, for example, on being able to address that audience that we can't access on the enterprise level, right? And these are all the companies out there that are, they've been working with these enterprise providers forever, right? And they require that. So it is a business and a culture of having to partner, right, to be able to get through to our customers. So it's really interesting. So to the audience, we're at about the 10 minutes till end of a session here. So I want to give everybody an opportunity. If you have any questions, you want to put them in the chat box. We will answer them. I think we've answered all the questions so far, but just in case we missed anybody, please pop in the chat there and ask your questions. So while you're doing that, let's see, I'm going to go back to I always like talking about the future, and so just for fun here, I'll put Sid on the spot here, but Sid, where do you see the future of healthcare at home?
Yeah,
let's say 20 years from now.
Cool. That's I think it's going to be mixed with a couple of things. There's going to be fancier sensors. There's going to be passive devices communicating in that flow. Hopefully we'll have interoperability to a degree. Hopefully we'll have value-based care to a degree. But I think the underlying thing is always going to be that clinician workflow and the patient experience there. And I think as the government is starting to get reimbursements and offer different programs to bring about value-based care and improve that clinician workflow to help de-risk it from them investing into it, I think we're going to see a lot of governments standing up accessibility focuses to incentivize patients that are suffering from the divide to access care. Security focuses to make sure there's no cyber security or PHI risk in those solutions, as well as quality focuses like the ones that I mentioned with the consortium that we're pursuing. Yeah,
excellent. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's with the advent of blockchain and crypto and all of those things, I really would like to see something that involves healthcare as part of that. How do you monetize or not monetize, but pay for it within the healthcare system, right? Yeah, I wonder if value-based care or Web3 is going to be the norm first. Yeah, exactly, probably. Danny, what do you think?
Well, the technology is here to stay. I mean, those those with the simple thoughts that this was just a phase during the pandemic, and this is going away and everything's going back to normal. This is the new normal. So this market is going to continue to grow. More and more manufacturers of medical devices are going to enter, if they haven't already entered this market. Just like we see more and more software developers entering the market today,
Right.
So there's a huge opportunity out there, and it's where technology is going to lead us. I mean, who knows? There may be a day that your watch will tell you that you're having a cardiac arrhythmia. Make a quick diagnosis for it. The technology, I think, is going to be there.
Yeah.
It's going to be exciting times. So there's a big future ahead, and hopefully we're correctly positioned to have future success, with our product line in the emerging market.
Yeah, and again, here's a perfect example of where being focused on a specific type of product for a specific type of, let's say, chronic disease is really important, right? Because here's where you can't be an expert at everything sometimes, but that gold standard that we're looking for, MIR can be the gold standard of taking measurements for respiratory diagnoses and all of that in the future. But so panelists, thank you very much for your time. This is great. We could probably talk for hours here. But just to say that both the Stel product and MIR products are available through Life365. Of course, I have to do a plug, but we really appreciate the innovation that you bring to the table. We really are looking forward to working with you closer in getting health technology into the home. So I'll leave any closing comments. I'll start with you, Danny.
Well, again, I appreciate the opportunity to engage with your audience, and we hope to work together more closely and get this concept continue to grow further and further in our market space, in the global market space.
Indeed. Thank you. Sid.
Yeah, I'll just, thank you so much, Mario. We're looking forward to working with you all as well. I'll just throw out there, if you want to follow us for breaking news, we're at Vitals Hub on Twitter. You can find us on LinkedIn, and we'll be presenting at ATA as one of the closing keynotes for their top 9 telehealth innovator, top 3 patient experience.
Oh, awesome. Congrats.
Thanks. Yeah. So if you want to follow us along there, hoping to stay in touch.
Yeah. And Danny, real quick, what's the next show you're going to be at?
The American Thoracic Society show, ATS, will be May 15th in San Francisco. We'll be there.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. Really appreciate it. It's been a great session. And thank you, audience. Again, please contact me or anybody on the Life365 team if you have any questions, and we'll be happy to answer them. Thank you all very much. Have a great afternoon and evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.